do you want to add?
No, I just agree with all that. I'm not going to say anymore.
Should creativity be promoted? To be honest, I think we are going to skip that, because unless you're going to say it shouldn't be, in which case we would now have quite an interesting argument. And you're not going to say that, are you?
No.
So let's now. I'm going to say something slightly before that, just to say that we are talking to an audience. You're here because you all believe that. Clearly, otherwise you wouldn't be here, would you? And you wouldn't be here. But it's not universal, and I'm currently helping to run a huge review of what is going on in child mental health, autism, ADHD, etc., where hardly anybody is telling us the answer is creativity, and most of them are saying we need more resources to diagnose more people with autism and ADHD. That's 90% of what people tell us. Occasionally people say, I think we need to be a bit broader than this isn't an NHS issue, etc., etc. But that view is incredibly in a minority. It really is. And what most people first want is a diagnosis, and then they want treatment. So it's not a universal truth. So.
No, well, I think that's true, and it is interesting. I mean, like, so 1 million kids are on the CAMHS waiting list, often waiting about 3 years for management. Something it's more. Oh, sorry, it's gone up since I last looked. I thought that's what you told me. But no, and about 75% have got query neurodiversity issues. But what's interesting is that they've sort of been forced by the education system a bit, I think. So sorry, it's a bit serious, not very funny. But so EHCPs, which are how you get extra funding to help your kids, you have to get the diagnosis to get it. So the whole thing has become medicalised, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And we've got to somehow break that cycle. And that doesn't mean that these people haven't got issues, and I think that's so. I know Wes Streeting at one point said that there's overdiagnosis, and I think that's can be an insulting thing to say. Well, what we have done is we've over-medicalised what we're doing, and there is a proposal from the South Bank. I don't know, there might be some people here from that bid about taking the waiting list and just saying, okay, you're still waiting, but let's just give you something else to do, something creative to do, and take all those people off the waiting list and actually give them some actually supervise, so there'll be a clinician involved in this, but see what happens to them when they do that. And we want to see whether actually that will reduce the number of people that need to actually see people like you, Simon. And then also, what I worry about is there's people that really do need to see you quite urgently, and they're stuck in this big, long waiting list, which is dangerous. So if we can get to those people and get a lot of people like doing music in kids is so well evidenced now, but as you say, people aren't talking about it, and that's because they're on this treadmill of getting registered with a diagnosis, then they get their EHCP, and then they get some help at school. Let's just give them the help at school, I think. Let's stop that whole loop. So that's my thinking. That's not to say that people haven't got issues, and I'm sure you agree with this, Simon, but I do think we need to actually rethink the whole system.
I do agree with you, but if our recommendation is we're going to take everybody who's been put on the waiting list by people like us, 750,000 just for ADHD alone at the moment, 750,000, and instead we're going to send you for music lessons, there would be an absolute riot.
I know, but you have to package it differently. But I know.
But even if that was, you would have massive comms, etc., so it'll be beautiful. But there would still be a riot.
I want to respond to that.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. I want to respond to that, and I would say that this whole furore around overdiagnosis, I think, is completely missing the point. And I think you're getting to this, right? You're literally saying that there are issues, and I think we need to talk about overexposure, right? These kids are being overexposed to poverty, racism, and a digital environment that really is not in their interest. But creative health might be the answer, right? And so there's something about us being able to diagnose the problem actually accurately and pointing to those factors that are not to do with these narrow diagnostic. I mean, let's be honest, the reason that we talk about things like ADHD and autism is because I don't have another language for it. In medicine, what else am I going to call it? But we need to be talking across these different silos and these disciplines and be thinking about actually their problem does not reside in the biomedical model, and therefore the answer is not biomedical, right? This is where creative health comes in.
My particular hang-up with all of this is that we're talking about creative healthcare, we don't have an agreed definition of health, we don't have an agreed definition of creativity or of art. If we start with health, I absolutely abhor the World Health Organization's definition, which is not just the absence of disease, well, who's absent from disease, but a complete state of physical, psychological and social well-being, which is in essence an orgasm. And you can't do that all the time. So my vision of health is the ability to live a life that you have reason to value, and you could be living with a chronic disease and have that. There are all sorts of reasons, but how can we create an environment where people have a life that they can value? And we all do art every day. Cooking is art. Arranging flowers is art. We do all sorts of things that use our creative brains. So we think of, as you say, highfalutin art of pictures on walls. We're doing that creative process every day. So it's something that is essential to the human condition. And we do need to move upstream. However, I did work in paediatrics for 11 years. I worked in paediatric chronic fatigue, so I saw kids with ME, CFS, long COVID, fatigue from other conditions. And my consultant, Esther Crawley, was quite visionary because we didn't really have an understanding of how to diagnose. We don't have a diagnostic test for ME, CFS. We don't really understand it. She would create 90-minute consultations, 90-minute consultation on the NHS, which you could really listen to them and explore things. And one of my questions I'd say, as well as your 5 portions of fruit and veg and your 5 portions of poetry, you should try and get 5 portions of fun a day. So tell me what gives you joy and meaning and purpose in your life. And it was really interesting. And when you have chronic fatigue, it could just be the damp snout of your Labrador against your thigh, or it could be sitting in a cool shadow, it could be something simple. But lots of people already mentioned particular types of music, sometimes dancing within their energy levels, etc. So people are doing that stuff. And I said, well, try and have your 5 portions of fun a day, and they all have to be different. You can't do 5 portions of the same game. And then creatively, you'd say to them, how do you get through the fact that you're feeling absolutely exhausted, whatever? And so I gave them tasks to be creative. And one mum and daughter came back, and they said, at the end of the day, we relived the day together. So mum and daughter would sit beside each other in bed, mum with severe chronic fatigue, and they'd recap the day with rose-tinted glasses on. And they actually bought some rose-tinted glasses, and they would sit there both with rose-tinted glasses on, and they would try and accentuate the good points that had happened in the day, as well as all the bad stuff. And that was them coming up with their own creative solutions. The other thing that you probably won't like, because it is a bit... because they were kids, I took the clangers, which don't work in all cultures, I worked out, because some people haven't got a clue who the clangers are.
Looking a bit perplexed, actually.
And using the wows of well-being, I use clangers as a daily indicator of what people will tell you to be healthy. So clangers is connect, learn, be active, notice, give back, eat well, relax, sleep. Or it could be create, learn, be active, or it could be create, love, or it could be create, laugh. But the point is, it's talking to people about the various different aspects that might make you healthy, of which connection is probably the most important thing. Human beings are social animals. We exist to belong as if we're leaves on a tree. And that sense of connection when you're isolated through illness is what the single most important thing I think was making kids unhealthy and probably older people unhealthy. So the beauty of the arts is that it connects people. And that's, so there was a terrible IT program in the NHS with a fabulous name called Connecting for Health. And maybe the slogan Creating for Health or something could be something we could all get behind. But the clangers thing worked quite well. I'd always say to them, you've got chronic fatigue, you won't be able to do all 8 of your clangers. You might just manage 3 of them, so don't beat yourself up or feel guilty. But they did find it a vaguely useful construct to explain health and creativity in the context of all the other things you're supposed to do.
Did you bring that prop just to tell that story?
The clangers, yes. I wanted it up, and then when I knew there was going to be an artist,
Okay.
I just wanted to see if I could get clangers up on the board.
She's still doing your 2 fingers up the other
paid by
side.
the Oliver Postgate Foundation to try and get clangers promoted wherever I can.
But also, is the danger also of getting into sentimentality? I mean, you reminded me just as you were talking, Jude, I'm going to do what you do now. How many of you remember that film called Patch Adams, All Say I? Okay, half of you did then. That's what he does. He does it. They all then shout. I can't time you properly. You try.
You're doing a really good job.
You do it.
How many people remember the Patch Adams film? Say it!
Yeah.
No, it was that
Hard, was it, Simon?
No, it wasn't. No.
But, engagement,
okay, right.
Engaging your audience.
Okay, how many people? Piss off. How many people? How many people? I'm going to do this one. How many people hated it? Say I. Oh, just me. I thought it was sentimentally awful.
Robin Williams?
Yes, and so did most of the critics.
Didn't he turn up at a hospice dressed as the Grim Reaper with a sign saying forthcoming attraction?
That would be quite funny, but I don't think
No, he didn't. I made
he
that
did
up.
it. No. And the real Patch Adams hated it because most of his life was trying to expose the inequities in the American healthcare system, and he's only remembered as a clown. So it doesn't always work quite so for me. Now, the second question is, how do we best encourage the public to engage? Which we've been flirting with as we've gone on. But who would like to kick off this time? I think it's going to have to be you, really, because otherwise you'll tease us
Only
again.
because I actually did the homework. But
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think you've made that point.
I think you did, yeah.
I think we've all had that point several times. No need to go on.
Give me a badge. So it actually comes back to what you just said, actually, Phil, which is the first thing about creativity, and we've talked about it, is that we kind of make it out like it's something separate to our lives, and yet it is what I said before. It's a human capacity, and it's like people are reaching out for the poetic prescription because it's just so intuitive. And I think the public are creative, right? So let's stop patronising them. Let's stop making it into this like, oh, we can allow you to do some art now, and like, oh, isn't it special? No, it isn't. And let's be really honest about this. Creativity is not owned by galleries, right? Even this one, like it's not owned by universities. It's not owned by anyone other than us who occupy kitchens and temples and mosques and playgrounds and WhatsApp groups. And so I think, let's not patronise the public, let's fund it properly. It always comes down to this, to some degree. Let's fund it properly, and access matters, right? Because we've just talked about inequalities. If we make it such that creative health is only available to those who are already comfortable, we're just going to widen inequalities. That just kind of speaks for itself. The third thing is this about prescribing it, right? But how many of us actually are able to prescribe this? Like, on this panel, who's able to prescribe art?
Yeah, I can.
That's just in your surgery.
Yeah, exactly. But and also, yeah, we can do that in Gloucestershire, and we need to spread it out. But what I think also, so I think there's two things here. There's a sort of upstream, I don't know what you want to call it, but actually we all should be doing stuff like this in our lives, shouldn't we? We don't need to see the doctor to do it. But also, so that's the first bit, and I think that is something really worth concentrating on, and that's about school curriculums, isn't it? And that's also about making sure that people get proper access to it, and as you say, the more deprived parts. But then it's a sort of downstream bit, so that it's the kids on the CAMHS waiting list. And I agree, and I think that's a good challenge, Simon. How you're never going to be able to sell that to the Department of Health, are you? Oh, just give them music. So somehow we have to integrate it into that offer. So you'd have to have some clinical input, but that doesn't mean you don't get the creative input as well. And I think as part of the picture, and I always say this as well, I mean 9 million people in this country are on antidepressants, for example. Now some of them really benefit from that. I'm not saying we can't cut out the psychiatrist entirely, which you'll be glad to hear, but actually we need to add on this other bit, I think. And if we can integrate that into the service, it will become normalised. And that's our challenge, I think, at the moment, to do that.
Yeah, a bit cheeky though, 90% prescribed by GPs.
Yeah, I know, it's all...
Anyway, I
think it's
channeling
more than
my
that.
wife.
Yeah.
No, I meant the opposite, I meant annoying my wife.
Channeling Claire.
The other thing I think is important is to focus on the process rather than the outcome. I mean, I would say I was a minimally competent comedian, but I'm quite a shit cook and a very average trumpeter. But I love doing them. I was able to play the trumpet because in the old days, state schools, they came around and they handed you loads of instruments. So I started on the cello, wasn't very good, and picked up the trumpet. I have a dear friend who recently said she plays the saxophone, so I thought, I'm going to pick my trumpet up again. And you get enormous benefit from trying to play the pieces I used to be able to play when I was 16. Amazingly good for your breathing and your lung control. So it's a joy. B, you're pushing yourself to do the twiddly bits. But it's okay not being brilliant. I wouldn't perform in public, as I wouldn't cook for people other than my friends and family. But it's okay doing activities. We have this perfectionist thing, that you have to be brilliant at everything you do, and it's not about the outcome, it's the process. It's let's try a bit of this, let's try a bit of painting. And in Daisy Fancourt's book, there's a lovely story at the very beginning about someone starting off in an art therapy course, ends up a famous artist, but started off really anxious and not wanting to join in and encouraging people to do that.
The real Andy Burnham, not in Texas Chainsaw Man, he's actually called Andy, not Andy Burnham. I mean, Burnham bit up, but it works very well. This is the real one.
It's not factually true.
Andy is true.
Right.
Yeah, he gets murdered, and he doesn't actually have a surname.
Right.
So perhaps it was. So he talks about the breathe actually, which is the ENO. What they did during lockdown because there's nothing else they could do on breathing and breathlessness and using singing to help that. And then he doesn't mention that of course he then nicked the ENO and moved it to Manchester. But there we are. But that's there as well. So that's obviously a very good type of thing.
But can I just pick up on this thing, because we're talking about prescribing stuff, and I know that social prescribing, of course, is available to GPs. It's not available to me as a paediatrician in a hospital. And I think that some of the public, quite rightly, look at social prescribing and they think that you're fobbing them off.
Yeah.
Right, it's like, oh, go away and go to a choir and this will solve all your problems. And I'm not saying that going to a choir won't solve all your problems, but I think there's something about how you embed it and make it part of something that is valued by the medical system. And that I'm actually, this is like amazing, like go and do this. There's a difference, isn't there? There's a difference between like, oh, well, this will take care of your issues. And I think there's something around the funding thing, and also that idea of how do we protect this stuff, because we all know, and I can tell you having trying to run these projects, that the first thing to be cut, if funding is ever going to be cut, are the creative projects, right, or the arts projects. And how do we actually say, yes, if we're going to be serious about saying that creativity should be a health behaviour, how do we also defend it as a public good? Because it's going to be cut the minute that it's in danger. There's something about us in the health profession saying, actually, no, this cannot be cut. This is actually like the fabric of what makes us healthy.
Yes, that's true. I was on the board of NHS England for 2 years before we were all sacked. But what always happened every time was, as things got difficult, in fact, the first things to be cut was capital, which is why most of our hospitals are falling down, and the dreadful state of the mental health hospitals that are supposed to be calming places that you go for refuge and asylum. In the old days of the big asylums, you should remember, actually they were cultural centres. That is where every asylum had an art room, every asylum had a music room, every asylum had areas for cricket and sport and gardening, made their own food, and indeed every asylum had a poetry magazine, not just up in Scotland with Owen, etc. That was part of every one of those asylums that we now regard as monsters, you know, the water towers on the landscape. They all of them involved huge amounts of cultural therapy. I mean, because they didn't have anything else much they could do, but they did. Now, if you go into a hospital, a mental health hospital, they are also completely sterile. I don't know if you've ever been in any, and we wrote about this in Mental Health, that review, but it's all about safety now, and the atmosphere is full of plastic, everything is plastic, everything is surveillance, and if you weren't severely ill before you went in, you certainly will be after a while. And this is, I'm being serious now, this is not a joke, this is actually true. Any attempt to change that leads to huge outpourings of people saying, that's too risky. And risk is the modern word that defines how we run our health service. So I'm saying that's what actually happens. There is a hospital in Britain that has its surgical wards built over a sinkhole. None of us know which hospital it is, but we suspect we will find out dramatically one day, sooner or later, because it still is. Okay, just going to take it from that. Phil?
I agree that we need to move upstream from hospitals, and Labour had, I thought, a really good idea, and I don't know what's happened to it. When they came in, I think there was an idea to do oratory skills for all school children in primary schools, public speaking skills, but encouraging everyone to get up and tell your story. And it's, even today, you meet people, when I do afternoon speaking, people say, well, how do you do that? There are loads of people who are still frightened of speaking in public because they never did it. And if you could teach that skill in primary schools to tell your story, now you could tell it with humour, you could tell it with pathos, you could talk about Arsenal winning the league, you do whatever you're passionate about, I think that would have a phenomenal difference. And the trouble is that how do you come up with these ideas? Is it happening? Has it been rolled out?
No, it doesn't. Has it?
Is it working? Oh, good. Yeah. I think it's a brilliant idea. And I'd happily go into my local primary school and help kids find their voice, because that's the issue. And Simon and I were recently at a BMJ redid the Medics Review after 25 years, and I thought, gosh, this is going to be awful. And yet, there were people across generations, doctors coming in and finding their voice and talking about what they found frustrating about their job. And it was really actually very moving. And I think therapeutic, the joy in their faces at the end of it, is encouraging people to talk about their stuff on stage.
It was also quite funny. It was also quite funny.
You can turn it into poetry, you can be humour, just a serious thing. Getting kids to have the confidence to stand up and talk in public.
I practice doing after dinner speeches by talking as I cycle, because you have to practice all the jokes, etc. out loud. And a couple of weeks ago I was cycling around the Elephant and Castle roundabout, and this guy overtook me, looked back and said, that last joke wasn't very funny. and it's actually tried it out that night, and it wasn't very funny. So then I told that story, and everybody laughed. Okay.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is we haven't actually got a national strategy for the prevention of mental illness in this country. So we've got
Which
stuff
is kind
around
of crazy, right?
What's that?
Isn't that kind of crazy that there's no national strategy for this?
Yeah, no, I think it's terrible. So I'm trying to get that, and so that starts at probably it probably starts at conception, doesn't it? So healthy, about healthy mums, and then the first 5 years, and that's around like more singing and all that sort of thing. And then also, so a lot of it is around more creative stuff. And then Simon, you're smiling again, but actually it's true. It's also about poverty. It's about decent housing, and health inequalities really drive a lot of. But we haven't got a strategy, so I'm trying to create a strategy, and I think physical exercise, isolation is an incredibly big driver of mental illness. And the arts are a great way of smuggling in sort of isolation prevention. We've got someone described our society as a isolation-genic society. It makes us isolated. So I thought it was quite a good word.
Would you lead it? Would you be our National Director of the Prevention of Mental Illness? Because you'd do your homework, you wouldn't just turn up and wing it. You'd properly nail the facts, and you're a brilliant communicator. Will you do it if it's offered to you? Or are you too busy?
That is a great idea.
I'm offering it to you now. I know it's not in my gift, but I think you'd be absolutely fabulous. Would you do it if it was offered to you? There you go.
And I would say, you mentioned Andy Burnham, the real Andy Burnham. So we've been doing a series of podcasts about comedy on prescription, which are about to be released. Phil is on one of them.
Is mine good?
Yours is great. Yours is great. You're very it's really funny. And we've got a number of other people. I've got Tom Findlay from Groove Armada, who's actually a psychotherapist at King's, I think, as well. He's very cool and very interesting to talk to. And we've got Andy Burnham. Now, Andy Burnham, I'm hoping, because I've spent a bit of political capital getting this far, I'm hoping he's going to be our next leader. Right now, he's really into this stuff. If you look what's happening in Manchester, and I did a podcast with him, which we're going to release shortly. He talks about creativity, and he talks about all the stuff he's been doing. Oh yeah, oh God, is he getting a bit twitchy? Let's get him in. So that's my political.
I know.
Right, yeah.
Go on, finish. Are you finished?
Yeah. Anyway, so there is.
No, you haven't finished.
Yeah. No, I'd just like to say there's hope. Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's a great paper called 10 Ways to Beat the Chairman. All the things that you need to say when you want to continue and the chairman wants you to stop, and you've obviously read it. Very good.
Yeah,
right, now then, and by the way, you are slightly isolated. You did announce a national mental health strategy on Wednesday.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, not you, your party did.
Yeah, well, that was through, here we go.
Yeah, things are difficult. Right, now, contributions from the audience. The only rule is please don't be too long. The shorter you are, the more I don't mean in height, the shorter you talk, the more we will love you. And just say who you are and where you're from. So, lady, and the roving mic will catch you in a moment. So, lady in the white shirt and cap.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Juliet. I'm an anthropologist. I work with community choirs in Oxford. And I'm super, super fascinated by this idea of medicalising, and so people are prescribing singing, right? And then there's kind of like own NHS choirs happening, and with no idea about how much singing, especially in a place like Oxford, so much singing and creativity is happening everywhere. And I just wonder what your thoughts are on kind of the dangers of medicalising these things, because with my research I find it's really difficult to pinpoint why it is that singing with other people is so good, if you see what I mean. And I wonder what that medicalisation will do, if you will.
Now, I was told that we're not to answer these, we're just to get lots of contributions from all around the room, okay? Because we've had our time. So, can we have it right? So, lady with the hand up there on the right, towards the back, thank you so much. And then we'll go to the middle.
So my name's Esther Watts. I was a Creative Health Associate for the National Centre for Creative Health, and I run a charity called the Hero Project, and we run social prescribing, NHS social prescribing, hello, goody, and we also run creative activities within the community. So the thing I think is the most exciting is that our GPs, as well as the social prescribers, actually refer to the creative activities to people, and we have that sort of taster landing session for people to come to, often met by somebody they know already, or at least have spoken to on the phone. So it's about making sure that more GPs feel comfortable to do that, and that's the tricky business, isn't it?
Okay, so we've done Labour on the left, Reform on the right. Let's go to the middle now for a Lib Dem view. Thank you.
Definitely not a party political affiliation here. My name's Rebecca Mellor. I'm from Creative Wellbeing UK. We were established in 2012. We've been very much doing what's been talked about, but we have faced many of the social issues about attitudes towards creativity, the understanding of the benefits that creativity can bring. So my question to the panel is, how can we raise critical consciousness, not just for the general public about the benefits of creativity, but actually for the professionals that would potentially be able to implement this and benefit from it individually, and the politicians that are bringing in the policy. So there's often these people say that you tend to be left-leaning if you engage with the arts. But is that to do with actually a higher level of critical engagement in a pro-social activity? So that was my question.
You can actually make statements and not actually ask questions. So lady
There was
on the
a
right.
question in there.
Okay, fine. Lady on the right there with the hand up, thank you, right at the end.
Hi, I'm Camilla Vickers. I grew up in South Africa, worked in very impoverished areas, a lot of inequities. And I used to be an intensive care physiotherapist, so I understand a bit of your story. And I have actually recently been working with Davila, who's actually here from the construction sector, and we're starting to work within the areas, but starting from the bottom up. But can't there be something around, like, you know how they have the BIDs, business improvement districts? Can't they sort of create a specific funding of those within geographical areas that's specifically put towards the creative health area? Because I mean, you really have been fantastic. Davila is already opening so many doors with funding, part of their social value scheme, which comes with the housing. Surely you can start it a different way, you know? That's a question.
Okay, one question. So people at the back have been, let's get somebody from the back.
Shall I go?
Yeah, right
cool.
there, and back there.
My name's Nell Hardy. I'm the founder of Responsibility Theatre, which is a survivor-led organisation that works with people who experience post-traumatic stress. You'll find a picture of us in your copies of The Big Issue. Sorry, I don't really have a question. I just want to say something because I'm that arrogant. So I think there are two things about structurally about how medicine works, which is not helping us, that the arts can really come in on. One of them is waiting lists, and one of them, I mean, they're both to do with time. The other one is kind of set numbers of sessions and things. So people go and ask for help at the point at which they're most ready to get help, right? And then we put them on waiting lists. Like the people that I meet through my organisation, some of them have been on a waiting list for 4 years, and then get told actually they're just going to be taken off it. And at the end of that kind of waiting list, either people don't want it anymore because they're like, I've got my maladaptive behaviours now and I'm perfectly happy with them, thank you very much. Or they want an instant fix because they've been waiting in so much pain for so long. And that's where I think we get, what do you mean go to fucking salsa dancing lessons? You know, that's where it's, no, just give me a pill. The other thing is, if you're experiencing, I mean, to my mind, survival is an act of creativity. I see this constantly. Like, I do a lot of work with arts and homelessness, and the kind of structures that we get used to having around us, the second they disintegrate, you suddenly find ways of living and find resource inside yourself that you didn't know you had. And so the idea of meeting somebody who's in that kind of position by suggesting they go to 6 choir sessions is frankly ridiculous. The other thing there is that any kind of health behaviour is hard work, right? Eating healthily is hard work. Going to therapy is hard work. And kind of an increasingly medicalised, increasingly, I don't have real words, pills, etc., etc., etc. It doesn't prepare people for that. And this idea of actually, you've got to go to these things for 6 weeks in a row, and if you miss one, then you're not cooperating. Or you've got your appointment at this time on this date, and if you don't go, you're not cooperating. With our groups, people, I mean, we started being able to run regular groups just under 2 years ago. We're still seeing people turn up for the first time who signed up right at the beginning. And people can come religiously every single time. People can come once and then we don't see them again for a year. People can come religiously for a short amount of time and then take ages away and then come back to us. That's what we need.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's go right around the room again. So
Okay,
back left and then back left.
I'll be quick and then I'll hand over. Three things, but maybe I'll only say one. Tell me to shut up.
Okay.
No,
go on. That was a joke. Go on.
No, but the first thing is, one of the problems is that we all say everyone's creative. Of course everyone's creative, but everyone isn't creative until they've been shown how to be. Everyone has the potential to be creative. And that inequality of knowledge is like saying, well, everyone's a doctor. Everyone has power because they have knowledge, because they're a doctor. Artists are incredibly skilled people, and actually it takes years and years of skill and training to be able to deliver these sessions, and until we value them equally, then actually we'll never see change at the level you're talking about. The minute you say, oh, everyone can be creative, go out and plant a seed, we're denying the transformational power of performativity that happens when people go through creative processes with skill. The other thing is, because of that inequality of power, that's why people say, so we were involved with a project in Gloucester where people wanted us to pick up the waiting lists. And everyone did exactly what you said. They said, we don't want creativity, we want an answer to our problems. We've got really complex, undiagnosed neurological conditions. I need an answer to this, and then I'll dance. So the project was successful after diagnosis. You can't pick up the waiting list and offer people when they know, because of the way the world is structured, that knowledge is over there. And until we reverse that, now part of that reversal is the second thing I want to say, which is in building community. Now, as that lady there says, community doesn't happen in 6 sessions. I've literally remortgaged my house twice to fund the community we've built. Because a community of 30 people, of whom 90% are living on their own and only get out of the house to come to the group, have built community, and they've built the community over 10 years. Now, 10 years later, 30 people come each week, but that doesn't happen overnight. It happens because people are prepared to say, come whenever you can. Come next year if you want to, but come when you need it. And we will be here. Now, we will be here is not 6 sessions, it's not 10 sessions, it's years of building community where people are connected, empowered, transformed, and have agency. Thank you.
Be difficult to organise. Okay, go back. Yes, lady with your hand up. Yep. No, you got good. Okay, you've got the mic. Go on. Go on, you've been desperate to speak, so come on, off you go.
No, not really.
Keep good.
Anyway, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm Parinita Sinjit. I'm the founder of Little Leo CIC. So Little Leo CIC is about building bond between humans and animals, and how that can help in our community. So this is built on, at the heart of it is my therapy pet, Leo. And we have been a therapy team for the past 6+ years. So what I wanted to say is, I think human-animal bond is very much integral and is a key aspect in this creative well-being area. Because I have noticed in these years, many people, so we have delivered creative projects, art-based projects, and mindfulness. So people who have participated, these are the residents from the care home, from the schools who have issues with ADHD and autism. So we built this program, intergenerational program, where therapy pets were involved. And what we noticed was there was a huge difference in the mindset in the people who participated. Initially, they were hesitant, they were not sure how much they wanted to kind of express themselves. But the minute there was an intervention, human-animal intervention, it made such a big and a beautiful difference. And so what I wanted to say is it certainly isn't big. Animals are a big integral part of this whole thing. And it would be lovely to see that growing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had a veteran patient who had a therapy animal, but it was a python. And he genuinely thought, anyway, there we are. Okay, I'll do two more. Lady in green. Two more, and then one more in the middle.
Hello, I'm Maxine Bell. I've got a long background in the health service, started off as a nurse, then moved into teaching very briefly, realised that learning was blocked by so many things. Big fan of Ken Robinson for what he did on creativity and education. And I think that's one of the areas that we need to work in, is not just bringing creativity back into schools, but bringing it back into schools just for the sake of creativity, not for exams, not because you're a good artist or a good writer. So I'm quite passionate about that. And I worked a lot with young people and intuitively started using creativity with them, because finding the words for what's inside is very difficult for young people. I just wanted to say on the diagnosis with ADHD and autism, one of the things I feel quite strongly about is the lack of acknowledgement of childhood developmental trauma, CPTSD. I have lived experience of that, and I have seen what I saw with young people was young women getting diagnosed with personality disorder, very young age, boys particularly getting diagnosed with ADHD, when actually if you listen to their story, which is so important, then you will see there's trauma there. And so I am sceptical about some of these diagnoses. I feel like we're skipping over, yet again, which we've done for a long time, childhood trauma. And that's because all of us have it to some degree, and I think there's a not wanting to acknowledge that. And so I think this is an area for me that still needs flagging up and working with, because some of the traits of CPTSD are very similar to what shows up in ADHD and autism. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Okay, the average assessment now is 15 minutes, usually done online. That's how it is, and costs about £1,000. We are all in the wrong business. Okay, last one. I promised, lady. Sorry. Oh, I did catch your eye, but yeah, and that has to be it. Really sorry, but. This lady's been waiting. Oh, actually, well, everyone's been waiting. I've got to do it some way. Come on.
Hi, my name's Maddie. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
No.
Shall I be really quick?
Yeah.
So I get very nervous public speaking, so I just wanted to tell you a bit about what I do, because it's something that hasn't been mentioned here in creativity in the health realm. Is I work with people in addiction recovery, and I use film specifically. So I do filmmaking workshops, and we're funded by public health and like addiction charities. But I mean, I have to say, it's incredibly powerful. We use trauma-informed approach. Like the lady was saying there about CPTSD. There's a lot of co-occurring conditions like myself. I'm lived experience. I'm nearly 20 years in addiction recovery, so I'm an alcoholic. Hooray! But it's just, I just want to make you aware of what we do, and that there's a whole recovery community out there using creativity to overcome, these problems. And yeah, we're having the Recovery Street Film Festival in Leicester this year, supported by Leicester Public Health at the end of September. And the lived experience people are very welcome to put in films. And thank you for listening, and thank you for your
What we're going to do now, we're going to confiscate that mic, and we're going to lock it up. But one lady still has the mic in her hand, so you're going to finish off.
Anyway, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. My name is Patricia Cuenca. I am Community Health Ambassador and also founder of Latin Aging UK. It's an organization for older people. We're trying to tackle isolation, loneliness, and it's true, like it says, creativity is in all of us. 3 years we ran in this organization, and from the first time the ladies they tried to participate, they were no eager, because we always thought that art we have to study, you know, we have to go college, we have to go university to do something creativity, with the creativity. But now, no, we show and our participants, they are very eager to try anything now. Before they were scared to try painting or drawing or using, you know, some other type of arts. But now they are completely changed their lives. And also we work with social prescribers, but as a grassroots organization, we don't have the right support. We don't have the funding, we don't have the places. So I think that's support that is very needed for grassroots organization.
Okay, thank you. Now then, one last bit. So, I promised speakers 1 minute to sum up. 1 minute if you want it. You don't have to do it if you want, but judging by what happened last time, I'm going to start with you now, Goody.
Just thank you, everyone, for listening so closely and coming up with far more intelligent things than anything that was said on stage. I feel like what is coming up a lot for everyone is actually that there's a frustration with a mismatch between what you know is possible out in communities and what is actually available to you in health systems. And it's what Martin mentioned right at the beginning. We've got two worlds that don't really know how to talk to each other. And I think that's the bridge that we have to now think about, closing that gap. Is actually how can we allow those of us who are minded towards this being part of our professional identities, allowing this to be like day in, day out business as usual, as opposed to the kind of like tokenistic add-on, or like, the kind of fun thing that you think you can do when the funding is available. It should just be part of my palette, shouldn't it? Or the toolkit that I have available to me. And I think, I guess I'm just sharing my frustration with you, because I want this to be what every kid that I see should have available to them. And so I guess the question is really for the powers that be, and also the health profession itself, to just rethink what we think about health. It comes back to your thing, what is our definition of health? And I think you work from the ground up, and you build it towards that. But so basically just to say that you guys are really smart, and thank you for coming.
Okay. 2 fingers, Phil.
Yes, well, I actually felt I learned a lot from you, Gideon, because you put a lot of work in, so thank you. I'm really interested also in William and this idea of the ODAP, I'll be looking out for, but most inspired again by all of you. And I guess my takeaway message is the complexity of it all, and we should celebrate this complexity, but creative healthcare is the example per excellence of person-centered care, because what works for one person doesn't work for another. It's not like mass prescribing of statins, and that requires the time to listen and acknowledge and figure out a program for each individual, and it's complicated, and we shouldn't shy away from that complexity. We should embrace it, but there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. The sheer range and difference in all your different projects, all of which are fabulous, it's like one of those wonderful patchwork quilts, isn't it? And we're thinking, who is it who's going to stick it all together? And we do need both top-down and bottom-up leadership. We need, I always say, we need a B-Day revolution from the bottom up, but we also need a bit of top-down as well. So I do think we need a strategy for preventing and promoting preventing mental ill health, but we also need the grassroots people to be heard, and someone there stitching this quilt together. So thank you, and look forward to meeting some of you in the... Was it dry food and drinks? What
it was, but not yet. Simon?
It's dog food, I think.
It did say dog food, yes, I thought it did. Simon.
I think rather than B-Day, we usually say grassroots, growing from grassroots, Phil. But yeah, no, I like the B-Day. Yeah, no, I know, I agree. I just picked up a few things. So medicalising lovely things, I agree. Yeah, we don't want to spoil singing. This is just good for us guys, we must do it. But neither should we spoil comedy or anything we're doing.
That's Phil's job.
Yeah, that's Phil's job indeed. So, and then there's something about how our weird medical system works and everything. There's a lot of comments on that, and it is weird. The other thing I sometimes think is, should psychiatry even be part of medicine? Is it not just a completely different subject that we try and fit into the medical paradigm? Well, I think it's something different anyway. So anyway, that's my challenge to you. But I also, like someone said, survival is a creative art in itself, and I do think that's true, and that's what a lot of my patients feel, I think, as well. So well done, well said. Yeah, thank you.
I think medicine is very lucky to have medicine is very lucky to be part of psychiatry, actually. Right, okay. Martin, wrap up. I mean that in a nice way. Finish us off.
Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank all of our speakers. What a fantastic set of ideas and thoughts presented to us. I love your responses, and I wish we had longer to hear them, but you do have time to express them outside over drinks. I'd like to thank Lola and William. William, it's always such a pleasure to hear your poetry. Thank you so much. Thank you too for the panel. Saved from the very edge by Goody. Thank you for that. She really has got a big job ahead, hasn't she? But I think it's been a very stimulating afternoon. I think we've got lots of challenges to address, haven't we? So some of the ones that we've been talking about a lot, about the role of the risk of overstructuring creativity on one side, the challenges of the culture of the NHS. There's so many big issues that we need to address, but what I am confident about is the energy is here to do something about it. I think this is a movement. You may or may not like movement. This is a movement. We are on a journey, and I think there's a real energy to that journey that I don't think I would have experienced 5 or 10 or certainly 20 years ago when I was a GP working in an inner city area. So I think it's a really exciting time. Well done to all of you. Go out there and deliver. Thank you so much. So refreshments, thanks again to Nikki for hosting us. And there's a big issue out there as well. And finally, Pen.
Yes, amazing.
Would you be happy just to describe what you've done and how and why, just very briefly?
They've actually made a hell of a mess. You know, it's always funny, like it's something like this where we're talking about how wonderful the arts are and how good for our health. This was helpful. Wonderful speakers, wonderful discussions and debates and suggestions, and really I've just grabbed as much as I could of it and thrown it on here, and I'll keep adding colour and pictures and bits and pieces. So thanks very much.
Brilliant. What are we going to do then, Nikki?
Well, we're going to take an image of it, aren't we, and then we're going to send it to everyone.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, everyone, for giving up your time and enjoy the reception.